Perek Bet. And Perek Bet starts in Hebrew, and then it transitions into Aramaic. And for the first 7 prakim of Daniel, starting with actually till the end of Perek Zayin, from this point in Perek Bet until the end of Perek Zayin, almost everything is going to be in Aramaic. There's a large portion of Aramaic in Daniel. It is a reflection, unlike Sefer Ezra Nehemiah, where you have Aramaic, which are normally just reflecting the documents that they had received, which were written in Aramaic. Here the conversations are in Aramaic, and it's a reflection of the nature of the book. The book is taking place in Nebuchadnezzar's court, in the court of the king of Babylon, and as a result of that, we find these matters. So we start in Hebrew. Uveshnat shtayim lemalchut Nebuchadnezzar. It was in the 2nd year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. Now, the problem with that date is massive, because if you recall from the previous Perek, from Perek Aleph, we had talked about these young men, including Daniel, who were going to be given 3 years to prepare to be able to be in the court. And this Perek, Daniel is already in the court, and it's in the 2nd year of the reign. So how is that possible to be in the 2nd year of the reign? So the simple answer is in Seder Olam Rabbah. And Seder Olam Rabbah, which Rashi repeats, is that it's not the 2nd year of his reign, but it's the 2nd year following the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. In other words, it's the 2nd year of his reign over the vast empire versus the 2nd year of him being the king of Babylon. And that's the way they normally take it. And according to that position, we're actually in the 20th year of his reign, because if we remember when the things happened in Yerushalayim, it was an earlier point in time. Now, Rav Yoel Ben Nun, however, has a fascinating theory that's completely different. It is not traditional in any way. And what Rav Yoel Ben Nun suggests, it's the 2nd year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, but this is not Nebuchadnezzar, who we know of as the one who conquered or destroyed the Beit HaMikdash. Rather, this is the king of Babylon, and it was a generic name of the kings of Babylon, or Nebuchadnezzar. And so you have Nebuchadnezzar, the one who actually destroyed the Beit HaMikdash, and then you have his son, Avil Merodach, and then you have his son, Shar-Edzer, and then you have his son, Nebu-Na'id. And these are names we know also from Babylonian documents. And this is the 2nd year of Nebu-Na'id's reign. Now, Nebu-Na'id's son is the one who's ultimately going to be assassinated, and it's going to be the end of the Babylonian Empire and the beginning of the Persian Empire. But according to Rav Yoel Ben Nun, therefore, this story isn't taking place early in Nebuchadnezzar's reign. It's taking place after the person we normally call Nebuchadnezzar, after he's done. And so it's the 2nd year. We have no problem with chronology. Of course, if you look in the scholars who don't accept Torah being Sinai, or don't accept this having been written by Ruach HaKodesh, they just say that this is, there's a multitude of authors who wrote the book of Daniel, and they weren't really cautious about the years that they put in. And so therefore that one had 3 years and this is 2 years, and just oops. But even according to that approach of the oops, it's a little complicated for me to accept, because you're writing a book, read the previous chapter. When you're editing it, get rid of the oops, put something else in there. There is another version which does suggest, one of the Greek translations has it, the 12th year, which could work, but doesn't really work well. The easiest answer is either Seder Olam Rabbah, the 2nd year of him reigning over the entire world, or Yoel Ben Nun has a fascinating theory. Yeah, Alita.
Isn't there any history around it that can sway you one way or the other?
Well, we have the history. In other words, we know Babylonian history very well from inscriptions.
Right, so
but we don't know where Daniel plays it. We don't know where this specific story will take place. So we have all of the chronology. If you want to know all about Nebuchadnezzar, just drive to the south side to the Oriental Institute, and he's there all over the place. All of the Babylonian kings are there. So what happens in his 2nd year of his reign, however, Chalam Nebuchadnezzar Chalomot. Nebuchadnezzar dreamt dreams. Now, the plural here of this word dreams isn't that he had multiple dreams, but really it's one dream with pieces to the dream. There were portions to this dream itself. And when he had this dream, Vatit Pa'em Rucho. And at that point, he was bothered. Now, Tit Pa'em Rucho can come very simply from, as the Mitzudot Zion says, it's like the word Pa'amon. It was ringing in his head. Okay, the reason why a Pa'amon is called a Pa'amon, the reason why a bell is called a Pa'amon, is the clapper, every time it hits the wall, okay, that hitting action is the Pa'amon, is the sounding. So this was really bothering him. This dream that he had was bothering him tremendously. Interestingly, it's an unusual form of the verb. In this case, it is hitpa'el, vatitpa'em rucho, whereas when it came to Paro and Yosef in his dream, it says vatitpa'em rucho, one tafetz, well, which in that case is nifal. And the reason is because this is, he had lost entirely the dream. He knew he had a dream. It was bothering him. He knew there was something about the dream that he was being bothered by, but unlike Paro, and this is Rashi's approach, unlike Paro, who remembered his dream clearly and didn't know the answer, Nebuchadnezzar didn't even remember the dream. He didn't have that clarity of the dream itself. Interestingly, according to Rav Meidan, another Rav Yoel bin Nun was also from Yeshivat Har Etzion. Rav Meidan is one of the current Roshei Yeshivot of Yeshivat Har Etzion. According to Rav Meidan, he suggests that the reason why we have the double taf, Tit Pa'em Rucho, is really to emphasize it's a very strong, he's being bothered by it tremendously by this. And so as a result, what he does is, Ushnato Niyata Alav. And as a result, his sleep had left him. He was unable to sleep. Niyatav nechleti, in other words, this is another terminology according to the Ralbag. According to Rashi, Rashi says that this word niyata comes from an unusual verb form found in Sefer Yechezkel Perek Zayin Pasuk Chavav, which is hova ala hova, which means it's been fallen away from him. He couldn't sleep after this dream. Vayomer hamelech, and so the king said, Likro lachartumim, laashafim, velemechashvim, velekasdim, and he said, call in the advisors. Now, most of these advisors we had in Perek Aleph. We had learned about them. The Chartumim, if you recall, well, we know the Chartumim even from Mitzrayim. The Chartumei Paro, the sorcerers there. The Ashafim we had as well. The Mechashvim are the magicians. The Lekastim. Now, the word Lekastim, again, is complicated because the first three are professions. Okay, how do they translate it in the art school, the professions? Necromancers, what? Astrologers and sorcerers. The third one, the fourth one, how do they translate it? Chaldeans, Kastim. It's a nation, it's not a profession. So it immediately you say, what's going on about this? So the Ibn Ezra takes an approach that the Kasdim were astrologers actually. Okay. What? Stargazers? Stargazers. So that's the Ibn Ezra's position. Interestingly, the Ralbag, right? Okay, the Ralbag says that they use some kind of lottery system. Normally, in the Persian, we know in the Persian time, the Goral, which Haman used to be able to pick the date, those were actually dice. We know that they threw dice. They threw dice, and that's how they were able to pick the date. Okay, and it could be the Ralbag says there was some kind of lottery it was a profession. It was a name of a profession as well. However, the Medrash Daniel, who we learned about in the first parak, it's in a commentary from the time of the 16th, 15th, and 16th century, but was only published recently in the 1960s. In the Medrash Daniel, what he suggests is, no, it's the Kasdim. It's specifically a nationality. Nebuchadnezzar was a Kasdim. The Babylonians were a Kasdim, or the royalty of the Babylonians were a Kasdim. And so what he did was he called not only the professional, interpreters, he called his nation, his people who were the smart people from them, okay, and they were identified by the nationality because they're his nationality. And so he calls these people in, which solves the problem of why you have 3 professions, and 1 nationality. Interesting that according to one of the Greek translations, Theo, and I forgot how it's pronounced, always represented by a theta. According to one of the Greek translations, there's a word that's missing here, that the way they insert a word, or there's a word understood, that he called lechartumim, la'ashafim, lemechashvim, shel hakastim. He called all of these professionals who were from within his nation. And that might be another way of explaining it, but he calls them. Now we know why he calls them. Lahagid lamelech halamutav, to tell the king his dream. In other words, the task which he's putting before them right now is not just to interpret the dream, but there's a test he's giving them. Can you tell me what the dream is, according to Rashi, that I don't fully remember? You'll tell it to me, I'll know it. Okay, can you tell me the dream? And if you can tell me the dream, then I want you also to explain the dream to me. And so they came and they stood before the king. And so the king tells him, Chalom, chalamti, I had a dream. Vatipaem ruchi. And he says that my spirit is ringing at me. Okay, again, the Medrash Rabbah, Rashi also says he forgets it entirely. The Ibn Ezra, however, the Abarbanel, however, suggests that what he was doing for them was he remembered his dream. He's testing him. It's one thing, like if you remember back Paro time, Paro goes ahead and tells him a dream, and then they're making it up. They're coming up with all these explanations. He's rejecting the explanations. The way he's testing him is, if you really are what you say you are, then tell me the dream first and then interpret it. Okay, we're not playing any games here. I want it real, right? Okay, and then also the Ibn Ezra takes the position as well. Ladat et hachalom. I need to understand the dream. Now again, because it doesn't say pitrono, the explanation of the dream, but I want to know the dream, it gives that opening to say that he was testing them both about the dream and then the interpretation of the dream. Whether he remembered the dream or not is the source of the machloket. Vayidabru hakastim lamelech aramit. The people, the Chaldeans, the Kastim, they replied to him in Aramaic. Now, the reason they replied to him in Aramaic, according to the Mitzudat David, is they didn't want to use Kasti. The royal language, the lingua franca of that time, was a specific language of the Chaldeans. Aramaic was the common language at the time. Aramaic would be transformed by the time of the Persian Empire already, later in this time, to be the lingua franca as well. But currently, according to Mitzudat Zion, and according also to history, we know Aramaic was a language that was used by everyone, by the common folk. And so the Mitzudat Zion says, hey, you know what the reality is in this case? Reality is very simple. They spoke back to him in Aramaic, so everyone would hear what's going on. Because what the king was requesting was not only tough, it was a little unreasonable. And so he didn't want to take a chance. And so he says, why? Well, so if I say that all of them were Kasdians, right, then it makes sense. And it could be that his own people step forward. Because remember, if I say there are 4 groups of people, 3 kinds of sorcerers, and the Kasdians, who were his own people, who may have occupied all those professions, they were all on the same, they were on the same trial at this point with him. And at the very same time, what's happening is they have a different kind of relationship to him, if I take that approach. Okay, so they're the ones who are stepping forward, who have enough guts to step forward. And they say, Malka la'al min chayi. And so they speak to him, may the king live forever. Emar chalma la'avdach. Do us a favor. Tell us the dream. Ufishra nachvei. And we'll tell you its interpretation. In other words, they're saying, hey, we're okay for this, but why are you hiding from us the dream? Anei malkam. So the king went ahead and he responded to them. Ve'amar lekasdai, and he tells these people who said, "Give us the dream." Milta mini azda. You from this is something that everyone will know. Azda is to go out. This is like public information. Hen lo todinuna nani chelma ufishre. If you don't tell me both the dream and its interpretation, hadamin tit avdum. I'm going to cut you up into pieces. Is the simple explanation according to Rashi. According to hadamin is actually a Persian word. Okay, so in a Persian word meaning limbs. Okay, I'm going to do something to your limbs. I'm going to cut off your limbs. Uvatechon nevali yitshamun, and I will also make your homes. I will completely destroy your homes as well. So, they say, tell us the dream. And he gets back to him and says, we're not really bargaining here. Okay. This is the way it's going to be. You do what I want or you're dead. Vehein chalma ufishre tachavon. And if you tell me, however, the dream, matnan un nevizba vikar sagi, I'm going to give you gifts. Matnan is matanot. And I'm going to give you offerings, and I'm going to give you honor, a lot of it. Sagi is the word kablun mi kadmai, from before me. You're going to get all of these things. Lahen chelma ufishre hachavoni. And therefore, do me a favor, tell me the dream and tell me the interpretation of the dream. So first of all, he threatens him. And then he says, by the way, if you do it, it's your advantage. Now, obviously, if you don't do it, it's a pretty big disadvantage. Okay, but it's not like you do it and you're alive. You do it and you get everything under the sun. The interesting thing is he started with the threat. So again, the Medrash Daniel says he started with the threat to really put them in their place. But when he saw their reaction to the threat, what he ended up doing is saying, wait a second, and he tried to repair that right away. He didn't want to, because they're freaking out on him. There's no question about it. This is not a pleasant place to be in right now. Ano tani yanut vamrin. So they responded a second time and they said, Malka. They said, O king. In Aramaic, you know that an aleph at the end of a noun is the equivalent of a hey at the beginning of a noun, of a hey hayediyah. So Malka translates into Hebrew as Hamelech. Okay, Malchaya is plural, Hamelachim. Okay, Melech Malchaya, we say like in curry bone. Okay, the king of the kings. Okay, Melech Malchaya Malachim, right? Okay, but here we have Anei Malka v'Amar. Okay, and so they went ahead. I skipped the line. Pasuk Zion. Ano tinyanut v'amrin. They responded a second time and they said, Malka, chelma yemar la'avdoi. Please just tell us your dream. Okay, la'avdoi la'avadav, to your servants. Okay, interestingly, if you look back in the previous pasuk where we had it, it was avdecha. Before, now it's to his servants. We're in third person. Before it was second person. And according to the Ibn Ezra, the reason why we switched, they refer to themselves now in third person and not second person. Originally, before the threat, we're your servants. After the threat, they're pushed back a little bit. And so now they're in third person to the king's servants. They're talking about themselves and not talking of themselves as well. And he says, please, just, let's have a good time. Just tell us the dream and we'll handle out. We'll take care of the rest. Anei Malka ve'amar. So one more time, the king responded and he said, Min yatziv yada'ana. He says, I now know. If you remember, right after Shema in the morning, emet v'yatziv v'nachon v'kayam, etc. Yatziv means it's a truth. It's an element. It's standing. It's factual. Okay. So he says, I know now for sure that what the idana antun zavnin. You're stalling for time. Idan is time. Antun is again atem. If you ever, for instance, to take it real simple, in Hebrew, we have the word ish, right? What is the plural of the word ish? Anashim. But wait a second, why isn't it ishim? Actually, we do have a Hebrew word ishim. Ishim typically is like personalities. Okay, but why is it anashim? If the word is ish, it should be ishim. Because the real word, the original word, was anash. And that's why if you look, whenever the word ish appears, inside the yud, there's a little dagesh, there's a little dot. That's what's left of the nun. But the plural form still remains in Hebrew, anashim. So if you look,
like enosh, just like enosh, ma enosh kitis
Ilana, you'll talk a little bit louder. We can't hear you well. Hold on one
Sorry.
second. Go ahead.
Just like the word enosh, like ma enosh kitis kerenu, or the name enosh.
That's the original form, anash, and here antun is the same thing as atem. Okay, ant, who's zan, ata is ant in Aramaic. So the nun was that original form that we had that in Hebrew has dropped out, but in Aramaic, the nun still remained. The idan, okay, he says one more time, min yatziv yada ana, I now definitively know, the idana antun zavnin, you're just buying time. Kol kavel di chazitun, okay, everyone, you see, the azda mini milta, okay, because from me are coming, because everyone knows all of this is happening. Everyone knows what's happening here. If you don't tell me at the dream, one is the rule is got to be done. Okay, dat is not religion. Dat is the rule, the law. Okay, umila kidva ushchitei. He's demintun lememar kadmai, and at that point, okay, it is something that is despicable, and that what you're doing to say lememar kadmai, to tell me before me, ad di idana yishtane, until the time passes, lahen chelma amruli, to go ahead and tell me we want to tell me the dream, and then the inda di fishre tehachavunani, and then you'll give the explanation. In other words, he's just, the first time they say tell us the dream, he says you tell me the dream and you tell me the explanation or I kill you. Then he backs off a little bit. He says, okay, it'll be really good if you do this. Then they say, great, tell us the dream. And now he blows up at them again. Okay, and it's understandable why he's blowing up at them all over again, because they haven't changed their position. He wants to see. And so as a result, what happens is, Ano Kasdai, the Kasdim answered him, Kadam Malkav Amrin, before the king, and they said, La itai enash al yabeshta. There is no one, there's no person on the earth, on the dry land, yabeshta yavasha, di milat malka yuchal lahachavaya, who is able to explain what the king wants to know. Kol kavel di kol melech rav shalit mila kidna lo sha'el. There is, if that no one from this great and powerful king you can ask this, you can ask any of the sorcerers. There's no chance of anyone being able to ever answering this. It doesn't work. Umilta di malka sha'el yakira, and that which the king is asking of us is so heavy. Rashi says yakar is also, it's such so onerous, I think I would probably say better. Va'acharan lo itai, and there's no one behind who can do it, who's with us, the Yachavina Kadamalka, who could tell the king, Lehen Alahan, only a God, Elohim, only a God, Dimedar Hon, Im Bisra Lo Itoi, okay, who don't live with people. In other words, what you're asking us something that's impossible. If you notice, Midar Hon, we know the word in Hebrew, from the word Dira. Okay, the same word there. So what you're asking us is an impossibility. No human being could ever answer your question. You want to kill us. Yeah, really nice. You want to kill us, but how can you do that? Huh? Because if they make it, but the problem is they can't make it up because they know that if they make it up, the first part they have to make up is the dream that possibly he remembers.
Except if they make it up, they have a little cheese.
Okay, cold, yeah, Vera.
Little teeny dreams.
Because it's coming to us. The conversation is, why is the conversation coming in such great detail? And the answer is it's coming in such great detail because we're going to see Daniel coming up. It's actually building up to Daniel coming up and doing exactly what they say it's impossible to be done. So it magnifies what Daniel will do by seeing how much they complain about what they can't do. Just one more pasuk, and then I apologize. I have to stop after that. Kol kavel dana, because, okay, kol kavel always means because, malka banas ukatzaf sagi, okay, because of this, the king got so angry. Sagi again is much. Ve'amar lo vada l'chol chakime bavel, and he said to destroy, to kill all of the wise men of Babylon. Now, by the way, this is always the smartest thing for any ruler to do. I really don't like what you're doing, so I'm going to kill all my advisors. Yeah. Vidatan nefkat, and the rule went out. Vadat nitna b'shushana bira. If you remember going back to that phrase we have in Megillat Esther, same term. Vidatan nefkat. This word dat is not originally Hebrew. V'chakimaya mitkatlin, and they're killing the wise men. Uva'o Daniel chavroi lehit katla. And by the way, among the wise men who are going to be killed is Daniel and his compatriots. So now Daniel is going to show up on the scene, and now is going to be the piece where Daniel is going to prove himself in the greatest of ways. As I had mentioned at the beginning of the shiur, I apologize, I have to stop here. This is one of those great moments where Barry likes it. Not everyone's dying, but it's a little risky right now. It's a cliffhanger. I'll see everyone for a full shiur next week.